Coming up, a brand new NFL offseason inspired episode of Plugged In with one of my favorite cheeseheads. But first, I need to say hello to our very own Dandy Don Meredith. That's right, Steve Williams. You are going to finally get the introduction you've been waiting for ever since we started this series. And you know,
turn out the lights, the party's over.
All it took was a guest from Green Bay to get it done. So, you know,
we're in a that's right. By the way,
competitive football mood.
Hey,
good to see you.
Give me a fist bump and help me welcome Mike Daniels, the chairman and CEO of Nicolet Bankshares, which, for those who are listening, is the second largest bank headquartered in the state of Wisconsin, and one that Mike co-founded in 2000. So, you know, if we take a walk back and start from scratch, you think about the path it's on. Nicolet is now a robust $8.5 billion in asset bank, publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol NIC.
Right, and Al, I want to wake up the listeners right now, and we have a video version of this podcast, but I'd encourage you to look at Mike's Q1 investor deck. He has a great slide he always uses since inception total return, and 700+% since inception, well above S&P, well above the KBW Regional Bank Index. I thought it was a Bitcoin chart at first, Mike, but it is a killer commercial community bank in the Midwest. And we're going to talk about how do you do that? Because people don't know that still exists. High returning, consistent, low beta investment opportunities. It's a wonderful chart. I encourage you to check it out if you're not on video and download Mike's investor deck.
Steve is excited. Steve is, as you can tell, is really excited, as am I, to get this thing going. Because you know what? Mike is one of the real, true, great guys in the banking space. And he is also someone who holds some incriminating evidence on me as a Patriot fan.
I do.
Right? So here, you know, he's on the board.
I should have sent that picture to Steve.
Look, well, we might post it because Mike, in addition to running the bank, is on the board of the Green Bay Packers. And he was kind enough to take me to Lambeau for a behind-the-scenes look at the stadium, the team, the town. We just had a great time. He was breaking out the brats. We had cheese curds. What do we have? Sweet old fashions? But of course, like the quid pro quo was that he's got a picture of me, you know, with the foam cheese head on, posing as if it's my team. And now my Patriot friends are surely going to find it offensive when they see it. So, guys,
or they're going to convert.
Well, look, I think we can draft off of the success of the Packers and also of Nicolet to get this thing rolling because, you know, again, navigating the banking space is not for the faint of heart. Protecting your business while seeking new avenues for growth and change is, you know, par for the course right now. And so Steve and I just, again, as much as we're laughing with you, we're just excited to have you on here, Mike. So thanks for doing this. Yeah,
thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. I know that, believe it or not, I watch your guys' podcasts.
That's one of our listeners. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
We've just doubled listeners out.
Yep, you just doubled them.
Well, look, since you've listened in the past, you know that we find some musical inspiration from various artists. I was thinking, you know, we could go Thin Lizzy and the Boys Are Back in Town. That's something to cue it up. But, you know, again, since we've got Green Bay on the mind, you got to bring Lil Wayne in with his unofficial theme song, Green and Yellow. So, you know, there's just too much profanity for me to really quote it appropriately. But in the spirit of Go Pack Go, I think we've got to talk about team building and succession planning. And maybe we could do this, Mike, by juxtaposing what you see working as a founder of a bank. And also, you know, being on the Packers board, I know there's a search for a new CEO. So there's different ways that you can interpret this. You know, how do you think about that very idea, building a team, planning for the future?
Yeah, it's, you know, I mean, particularly as a founder, it's very personal, right? Everything that happens here, you take 100% responsibility for, and you take personally. And you know, what creates the success is a simple premise that we had 24 years ago. You have to matter to your customers, matter to your community, and matter to one another, and create an environment of shared success. And you build that around people. And you build it by believing that people grow when allowed to make mistakes within the scope of their job. Now, if they make it 1,000 times, that might be a problem. But, you know, otherwise, in order to do those things and have any sort of scalability, people have to be able to do those three things: matter to customers, matter to their community, and matter to one another, and create a shared success environment, not a coupon environment.
Well, you know, it kind of leads into a second, question, which is all around how does a bank stay entrepreneurial, as it grows in both size and complexity. It's easy to talk about, but you're living it every day.
Yeah, it's one of our core values, right? I mean, when we founded this, Bob and I tried to come up with something fairly simple that people could rally around. So it's 5 words and then the word be, which calls people to action. And we tell, when I get a chance to talk to new employees in onboarding or at employee meetings, those core values don't have to mean the exact same thing to everyone, but they have to be within a standard deviation, and a lot of people say the key is people, but you really have to mean it. And what that means is you got to trust and you got to empower, and because the customer can tell.
So, Mike, you've probably been a home for great bankers and great talent to come. How do you kind of make sure that as you grow and bring in bankers from regional banks, national banks, you don't dilute that culture? How do you kind of, keep them embedded in those 5 values? Because that can be hard as you get over 10 billion.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Anytime we bring somebody in from a big bank, because we were mid-sized bank guys when we left the mid-sized bank to start this, and or anywhere there's a level of deprogramming that occurs, right? Because it sounds really good when you're talking to somebody about coming in and making decisions, but then you got that other big word that comes when you have the ability to make decisions, and that's the accountability of the decisions you made, and be willing to take it and be willing to, admit mistakes. Bad news needs to travel faster than good news. It comes with a high degree of intentionality. Al, we were at a thing, a couple of years ago, and went around the room, one of those CEO things, and asking what your biggest competitive advantage was, and then what you think your biggest threat or weakness was. And mine was the same, and it was cultural consistency. And that takes intentionality every single day, right? We talk about it every single day. I even talk about it quarterly with the analysts, where I remind them on why we do what we do. The results are the scorecard of what we do, but they're not why 1,000 people show up across our footprint every day, right? The why, the why is what gets lost.
Yeah, and I think that's something that can be uniquely true about the mid-sized entrepreneurial banks. Is the folks matter to each other, but as you mentioned, they can be entrepreneurial and speak the truth. You get in some big organizations, and it's like watching 6 different political camps present PowerPoints that aren't sincere to each other, and then you lose that. So I think keeping that, I like the word intentionality here.
Yeah.
On culture.
Yeah.
No, and it's
very, very intentional.
Well, again, I promise that this is the NFL inspired, and we're in the off season. So, I look at the Packers as, again, being it's right down the street from where you guys call home. They're intentional with how they bring in wide receivers. They don't, go out first round splashy guys, but second round they hit all the time, and they've got a formula that works. And I use that as a parallel to what Nicolet has, because you're bringing in talent, on a regular basis, and you're helping them to, fit into the fabric of the team. And other banks do the same thing. They bring in high performers with high potential, but they don't always work out. So again, I think being deliberate, like you talked about, is hugely important. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. Mike models the behavior, but having walked the halls with his team, they all are in lockstep. They've got, their arms locked, and they know what the bank's focus is and how they're trying to do well for their customers and their communities. So,
a lot of it is they know why they show up every day, right?
Yep.
I mean, to do those 3 things and create shared success, it doesn't you win, I lose, you win. It's what are we doing together? And do we want where we live to be a better place?
Yep. So again, I promise some songs. I think this is like an AC/DC for those about to rock. We salute you moment, which of course, now let's just talk a little Ozzy Osbourne. He's got a great intro song for my New England Patriots, Crazy Train, which I know other teams also use as well, but it's all aboard is how it starts, all aboard. And I feel like Mike's done a great job of getting folks on board, but now there's a follow-on question to this, which is around building franchise value while you're building your balance sheet. There's things that we could talk about, whether, it's what drives value today. How do you earn the right to remain independent while being a real proper steward of capital? The challenging rate environment we're in, pressures on earning. There's a lot that goes into it, but it all comes back to this idea. You're looking to build franchise value, and you're also looking to build your balance sheet.
Correct.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that can't, so much of the pressure, particularly being a public company, is quarter to quarter, right? What did you do this quarter? And that's what the analysts want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And, from our standpoint, we make decisions knowing what the long-term outcome is for the long-term good of the franchise. And we understand that, being a public company, there's a price to independence, and it's got to be earned every day. So, we're publicly out there stated that we're going to be a top quartile, if not decile performer, and earn the right to be Nicolet Bank every day. Because if we don't, we don't want to be a zombie bank.
Yeah.
Right. Or we don't want to just exist, or we don't want to exist for a product. It's not about the product. It's not about, there's only so many ways to package a checking account or a loan product or a service. So what it really is, and, I just talked about this at one of our all-employee, we call them communication forums. I'm like, at the heart, you know what a bank is.
Right.
We have $7.5 billion of promises to give people their money back if they come in and ask for it.
Yeah.
We have $6.5 billion of promises that people are going to pay us back. So what's it built on? Shared success and community across the footprint, and it's incumbent upon empowering your people to matter across your footprint. And that's how you build franchise value.
And that's one of the reasons why we want these banks to exist and to earn the right for quite a long time and keep that grassroots alive. For the listeners, Nicolet right now, look this morning, Al, trading at about a 12.7 PE. And this in an environment where most of the peers are at 8 or 9. ROA 1.23 for the first quarter, I believe. And I think what's really cool too, Mike, is that it seems like you are willing to look at lines of business and the leaders there and the grit they bring to it. So we've got a franchise, Al, with big dairy lending segment, a very dominant leader in dairy lending. Wealth management, Mike, first quarter, 17% growth in wealth management the first quarter. And then, of course, right now, a struggling mortgage bank is part of the times. But it seems like you look at different lines of business and let leaders kind of grow those, and that helps give you some diversification in the franchise?
Yeah, a little bit. We don't really necessarily look at them as lines of business. We look at, it starts out with our comp structure, right? We don't have commission. We don't pay commission across any of our lines of business. Everyone's a base bonus, and it starts with the success of the company. But on our license plate in Wisconsin is America's Dairyland, so it only makes sense that when we had the opportunity to acquire that bank that was largely dairy, it fit in very nicely, and it's owner operated businesses, of a variety of sizes. The only difference is they got to show up 24/7, 365 because cows don't take a break. They got to be milked every day. But 95% of our dairy production goes into cheese, and cheese is the only growing dairy vertical, right? That's why when Al was here, all I did was feed him a lot of fried cheese.
And it was delicious, and we can do that again.
Yeah, try to, it's the circle. Our wealth business ties in nicely to our owner managed C&I book, which is a little over 50% of our loan portfolio, whether it be retirement plan services, fiduciary trust or investment management, or even our COLI line, which helps with business succession and transfers or part of the aggregate estate planning process. But success here is the greatest success is when all of those lines of businesses, you called them, all consider that customer their customer.
Right.
Then you've hit the jackpot and shared success.
Very cool.
Steve, if you and I were to be driving in your old beat up car and we popped a tape into the tape deck, you probably got some Bachman Turner Overdrive, ready to go.
Brad, best of Brad.
Yeah.
You ain't seen nothing yet would probably come on early. And I feel like as Mike's talking, you and I should be asking him about, this very focused relationship-based approach to banking and how that ties in with relationship-based pricing and how that actually gets executed in the real world.
And I want to point out, everybody talks about it. This is what I understand, that this is really embedded in the culture, especially the relationship pricing discipline. in this world, and in a world without the buoyant growth we've seen the last 15 years. I think it's going to be very important.
It's making sure that you don't do things that put you at odds with your customer base. In this market or in this environment, the easiest thing to talk about is deposit specials. We don't run them, right? We had this great idea at the end of 22 coming out of strategic planning that we were going to grow deposits crazy, right? We were going to get after it. So what did we were going to lead with our money market. If you look at our peer funding costs, our cost of deposits are higher than our peer group right now. Well, that's because we repriced our whole portfolio before the run up, right? Because we were going after it. Then the whole industry became focused on the same thing at the same time. But it's not running a special for new money only. If you want to talk about that side of the balance sheet, that's just one example. Relationship pricing means it's not doing a loan because it's a good loan, but it's a transaction, which typically a lot of CRE is more transactional. We have a totally different outlook. It's why it's such a small part of it. It's got to have a relationship component or the opportunity for a great relationship, whether that be wealth, whether that be personal business, whether that be whatever. We want to close the loop to the extent that we can. I mean, if you work with somebody helping them start and grow their business to sell their business, why would you want that money to leave? You want to be their provider, their trusted advisor across all of your revenue lines, right? Our mortgage business, we don't have they carry mortgage licenses like you have to, but they're bankers. They're in offices. They have deposit goals. They have wealth.
Interesting. So you don't have kind of the mercenary originator.
How do you holistically serve the customer, not yourself?
Interesting.
Well, I said if Steve and I were in his jalopy heading down the street, what would be listening to? Mike and I would probably prefer to be in a golf cart after a nice drive on a long par 5, putting some Marshall Tucker band on, get the song "Can't You See" going as the two of us just go find our ball. So this is the last question, and it's meant to be kind of an open-ended one, which is really about the challenges you see for banks around your size and slightly larger. So, but let's keep it under 50 billion. The challenges that they're dealing with in the next 3 years.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a one-size-fits-all thing. It kind of depends on where you are, right? I mean, I spoke at one of the investment banks investment things, and I use the word hope's not a strategy, but it seems to be for a lot of people right now, right? But some of it is, you go back a year. I mean, when you have a long-term focus, like you say, you make decisions not for the quarter, right? On March 7th last year, we dumped $500 million of treasuries. What happened March 10th?
SVB.
The press release was all teed up to go out. Guess what didn't go out? The press release, because all it could talk about was bond math, and all the failures. But the challenge everyone faced was the velocity at which the rates moved, not the fact that they moved. If it would have been a normal, stared cycle, that would have been different, right? I think the market at the start of the year saying 6 to 7 rate cuts. In our forecast, we put in 2, and one was in December, and we did that in November because whether it's higher for longer or 50 up or 50 down, it's going to have almost zero impact on us. We probably have one of the more transparent balance sheets, but some of it is, I'm a huge fan of community banking, right? When we do M&A and we've done 10, 11 deals, we don't say we want to buy your company. We want to say, I do say, you want to look at what investing your shareholder base and I does together. And we have a different chart for that we don't put out publicly, but it's what can you do together and what's the power. But if you earn the right to be you, the more power to you. But I think there's some that time's on the side of. There's some that if it's higher for longer, time's not on the side on. And, I think the regulatory environment's not going to get any easier. Yeah, I mean, with us at 8.5, we look at 10 billion not as an if, but a when. And in the fourth quarter this year, we're going to have a CFPB readiness audit. So we've made a lot of investments, but we want to know where the gaping holes in the work we've done, because you don't want to find it out after you've crossed. I mean, there's there might be some have-nots, there may be some haves.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that CNBC or any of those people really help a lot of people when they go out there and start talking fear, or anybody coming out saying there's going to be all these bank failures. You know, I mean, they did that last March, and you know, I mean, the fact of the matter is, people seem to live in a 140 character world right now, right? Whether it be Twitter or any of the social medias, and nobody ever goes back and back tests.
Yeah, I saw Otting from New York Community kind of come out and be very transparent in the earnings call, and it really helped because he finally got beyond the 144 characters, Mike. I think that's right out there. But I think we're at about 700 days of negative yield curve, to Mike's point. So some are really starting to unravel in that environment of a negative yield curve for that long. Others, like Mike, that didn't play it, as you know, kind of said, let's keep within these lanes, are going to be fine. And I think my takeaway here is culture. It can be really a huge part of this next wave of consolidation, and Mike being an acquirer of choice.
Yeah, and you got to lean in, right? You got to lean in your own institution. You got to lean into your people. You got to lean into your community. You got to lean into your customers, and basically have the dialogue. You know, we have a saying, you know, be comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, not all conversations are comfortable, but they may be necessary. So lean in. I mean, and I think we're real community banking, and has a tendency to shine is when there's those problems, because when at a certain size, you become so internally focused to try to figure out what's going on, where you forget to lean in.
Well, and I'd like you to lean in just for one quick second as we wrap things up. I want you to take your Nicolet hat off. I want you to put your Packers board member hat on and give me some predictions. First one, who will be the most popular player riding a bike during summer camp?
Well, it's Jordan Love. I mean, you know, he was the guest speaker at a charity function last night, and actually killed it. Was off the charts. But he is quickly becoming a fan favorite. And to your earlier point about the Green Bay Packers and their process on how they draft quarterbacks and how they sit behind a perennial Hall of Fame quarterback, you know, I don't know whether we're going to be 3 for 3, but I mean, early polling doesn't look poor.
All right. So then what do you think the best storyline? How about this? The best non-Jordan storyline to emerge during the season is going to be about this team.
Well, I mean, the first one, of course, that everyone wants to know is, you know, who's going to be the next leader of the Green Bay Packers from a CEO standpoint. Right?
And you've got a great one right now.
We do. Mark Murphy has done a tremendous amount. And you know, the NFL is a big business. The Green Bay Packers are a big business. And the growth that it's seen over his tenure, and just the investment that the Green Bay Packers have made in Green Bay, in the Titletown district, et cetera. You know, I'm very fortunate to be on the board. I'm on the CEO search committee, which is kind of fun. But those are big shoes to fill, right? I mean, you know, there's only been, back in the old days when the franchise first started, the board rotated every other year. So if you go back and do any history, you'll see that like there was somebody in 28, 29. But, you know, when they really started it, I mean, this will be the fourth person since 1956, 7, 8, something like that, to lead the franchise. And in today's NFL, that takes a special person, because you're the owner. You show up and stand with Arthur Blank, Jerry Jones, and all those other owners, and you're the voice of the smallest franchise in the NFL, the smallest city to have a franchise in the NFL. So I think that'll be a big storyline as that plays out going into the season here.
Yeah. Well, the last one is who's winning the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, what do you think I'm going to say right now? I think.
Hold on, where's my Patriots jersey? Drake May's bringing us back to glory, baby.
No. I mean, see, that's part of the problem. All these teams draft rookie quarterbacks, throw them in, and
the Patriots general manager comes from Elliot Wolf's tree. He's his son, so I think.
Yeah, Elliot Wolf. Ron Wolf was the general manager here for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patriots are
Elliott was
taking a
his son.
Packers approach.
Well,
So you're saying the
Packer
Patriots
approach-
have a chance? The
Yes,
Patriots
Jim
have a
Carrey.
chance? Is
Yes,
that what
Jim
I'm getting
Carrey.
from
The
Mike?
Patriots have a chance.
Hey, no, there are 32 cities and fan bases across the NFL that have the same irrational exuberance as you do right now, and only one is right.
Well, we hope they're all going to get plugged in with us because this has been fun. And I just want to give, Dandy Don a shout out in Arizona and Mike over the way in Wisconsin. It's been great. I'm Al Dominic. Thanks again for joining Cornerstone Advisors and Plugged
Thank you
In
so much,
Digital
Mike.
Series.
I appreciate you guys. It's really good to see you. Thanks for having me.